On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, what's Kyle and I's personal no trade list? Where will we absolutely not want to be traded to? I'm sure you can figure out one, but maybe there's some surprises on there as well. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Very much appreciated. Make sure you're following us on social media, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche, Instagram, and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com, and follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. Like we will do a little bit later, we wrap up the roster players for our season grades. We're going to get to both of them. We didn't get to Devon Toews. I put the vote out. So we'll do Devon Toews and Miles Wood, and that will wrap up the roster players from last season. So yeah, crazy. Got through them all, Kyle. It was a grind, but we got through them.
In the words of Dora the Explorer, we did it.
Having two kids, I can say there's one show that they did not get attached to.
Congratulations.
Yeah, is it one of the? Yeah, all right.
You get stuck in your head.
All right. All right. Well, where we're going to start today, we'll get to that no trade thing in a minute, the no trade list that we would have. But there is some Val Nichushkin news, which, hey, when it pops up this offseason, we are absolutely going to talk about it. So a couple weeks ago, he did I don't know if it was a podcast or just a show of some sort in Russia, and they released it. It was on it's on YouTube. You can watch it, but it's all in Russian. And you got some people who had some stuff translated. Didn't really seem like there was much there. It was recorded during the season, so before any of this stuff happened with his suspension and all that stuff. We didn't really talk about it because there was really nothing there in that episode. Apparently, there's multiple episodes of this thing because episode 2, part 2, just came out. And big kudos and big credit to Evan Rawal over at Colorado Hockey Now. He got a Russian translator and translated a portion of it. I'm just going to read it all. There's a little bit more substance here, I guess, than the first one, but I'll read it and then we'll talk about it. So here it is. And again, this is translated. So it says, it was the most difficult season, talking about the Seattle season. There were a lot of injuries in the team all season. I missed 2 months due to bursitis. I also had a shoulder injury, which constantly bothered me. I always had problems sleeping, but because of the pain in my shoulder, the situation with my sleep got worse. They did an MRI and they couldn't decide whether to have surgery or not. In the end, they decided not to do it and gave me injections in my shoulder. These injections stopped helping me, and they decided to inject me with another drug. When we flew to Seattle, they decided that I would not play the match due to a shoulder injury because I needed to not bother my shoulder for a while until the drugs start working. And everyone on the team knew that I would not play until the end of that round. It put a lot of pressure on the psyche and was very annoying. I had friends in Seattle at that moment, and I made the wrong decision. We hung out with them at night, and in the morning, I flew to Denver. This girl in my room had nothing to do with me. The club advised me not to give any comments, and I myself was not emotionally ready to explain all of this. This was probably the wrong decision, and it was necessary to tell the whole situation right away so that there were not a bunch of different rumors. If we had made it to the second round, I would have been ready to play. So that's the chunk that Evan had translated, which he put up on his site. The episode itself is much longer, so maybe there's more in there that we don't know yet. But your thoughts on what was translated?
I have a couple little things that hit me. Where was the shoulder injury? Where did that come from?
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you seek medical treatment. Where was the Avalanche statement on this anywhere? That would have been awesome and easy for the Avalanche to get out ahead of all of this that happened during the situation, to say, oh, he's not going to be able to play. He's working on this, or he's getting some treatment. He'll be back. Never heard any of that. And then the situation with the hotel room, very interesting, even more cloudy and murky. And so you wanted to wait because you didn't know how to respond. And we've had a whole season. Where's the response?
So,
oh, and you locked up. And while we're waiting on you to come back, I'm just curious, like, why you could just kind of briefly mention it in this podcast form, and why there hasn't been like a statement or anything. Like, you didn't want rumors to come out, so you decided to wait. It just doesn't make sense. And I got you back.
I mean, it is interesting, to say that you don't want it. It's almost like the Avalanche wanted to control the narrative of it. And I kind of can see that, but all that does is just what's been happening is just people come up with their own conclusions on what happened. And then that becomes the law, and that becomes the reality. And instead of hitting this head on, like he kind of says, like we probably should, it's probably not the right decision how we handled it. I'm not here to say if it is or if it's not, because, in I guess in the court of public opinion, it's not. But for the way that the Avalanche work, that doesn't, like, they don't seem to care about that. They just don't, because we've gotten nothing to this point. So I don't, like, you're not going to get anything, at least for the Seattle thing. That is so far in the past now. In terms of news cycles, that's, to them, that is over and done with. What's happening now is much, I don't want to say more important. So, something happened to a female in there. It's not more important. I'm just saying it's like I said, the news cycles, they're beyond that. So we're not going to hear what happened there. The injury thing, I don't like this. This is where we are, though, right? Any little bit of new info that comes out about Val Nichushkin is going to be blown up. And there's some people like, oh, why didn't we know about a shoulder injury? What injury do you know about during the course of a regular season? You know if it's upper or lower body, and that is it.
And then it doesn't really matter, because Connor McDavid had the abdominal injury, but he's now out on a boat. Like, he's wind sailing.
Oh, is he?
So
is it?
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
And I don't remember if they did say that. I mean, if he was not playing right before all this happened, I can't remember they must have said it was an upper body injury at that time. But the fact that we didn't know specifically it was a shoulder injury, we never know what the specific injury is. So, okay, but it is interesting that they decided against surgery and tried to, and again, when people read that, they're going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to point to that as the reason why Val Nichushkin has problems now. We don't know that. Like, again, you can go on conjecture, you can go on guessing, as saying like that's what led to a possible addiction. We have no clue. I'm not going to sit here and say like that is the main reason why that guy is now addicted to a substance. No, it could have just been a cortisone shot. You're not going to get addicted to that. We have no clue.
It could be like, honestly, you have two schools of thought here too. He also mentioned like he wasn't able to get to sleep. Does that have something to do? Like, if you want to play Nancy Drew and really like break down every sentence, you can, but then you have to take this whole blurb, like the way he handled the hotel situation and his comments. Are you going to lump it into the same level of validity with the shoulder comments? Is any of this real? Is all of this deflection? What are we really getting here? And again, to your point, we're now at the end of the 2024 season, and we've had two more little instances where he had to go handle things. What is going on? And again, with this coming out, where are the Colorado Avalanche?
Well, they have made comments on him. Like, again, they're not going to go back to Seattle and comment on that. And, they should have. They absolutely should have, for a multitude of reasons. But they haven't, and they won't. But they've made comments on what's going on with him now. And, you had that whole sit down with him, with Chris McFarland and Gabe Landeskog. So they've made comments. So, but I don't think there's anything new here where anything new needs to be said about this situation, because unless they want to go back and say this is what happened in Seattle, that's the only thing that they can do, is go back and say based on what happened here. But Nichushkin didn't bring up anything. The only thing he brought up new was he had friends in Seattle and he made a bad decision to hang out with them. So dude was partying, right? He was partying, and he says the girl had nothing to do with him. And you can either choose to believe that or not believe it. And there are a ton of people who do not believe it right now because they just feel like Val Nichushkin doesn't have any validity to him right now. And that's you fall on one side of the road or the other with that.
And it's, again, like to your point, like when it comes to the whole blurb, you can't tell me your shoulder was hurting you so bad, but then you could go party. And it's just like, what are we doing here? You can't sleep, but you can party. The Beastie Boys would love to have you in the lineup right now, but like or Andrew WK. But I mean, like, you got to look at the entire blurb and you can't really seek much truth in it because it's all said and done. And even the league said the situation's wrapped up and we're moved on.
Right.
So
so why would the Avalanche go back and make a comment when the league itself said we're happy with how the Avalanche handled this and we've moved on? Why would the Avalanche go back and make a comment on it? Even though we all would want them to, why would they go back and make a comment on it?
And what can you comment on, and how true is any of it?
Because I don't feel like if there was some bombshell thing in here that he said, you would think the Avalanche would make a comment on that. I just don't feel like there's anything new there that other than the injury. And that's not that earth shattering to me. The dude had an injury. We knew he had an injury, but we didn't know it was a shoulder. Great. Now that we can fill in the blank of what the injury was, does that open any other boxes? No.
No, it makes it muddier than it did before, honestly.
So, yeah. And all of what he's saying is like we were talking about, like in seasons past. So we don't know what's going on with him still right now. We're not going to. We did hear from Chris McFarland I shouldn't say that. We didn't hear from Chris McFarland. There was God, I wish I could remember who it was. It was on another radio show that said, don't expect the Avalanche to trade him during the offseason. Like if he comes back, maybe, but it seemed like they are going to take him back in and try to make this work from the sound of it.
He looks fine on Instagram. So
yeah, he does. You're right. Yep. So all right, comments away. I'm sure there's going to be people with plenty to say about that. So all right, let's get our first break in here, and we come back. Speaking of trades, Bardown put up an interesting, kind of a fun tweet about no trade lists. Who would be on your no trade list? So we'll talk about that coming up next. All right, let's hear from FanDuel. Kyle and I, we obviously love sports. We love them so much that we never want them to stop. But as the playoffs are now over with in the NBA and the NHL, we get fewer and fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to. But FanDuel lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All we got to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime that we're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. It's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. So like we said, Bardown had a tweet that they put up, and it was, you're getting a lot of, no trade clauses, no movement clauses kicking in now. So they put up, if you had a no trade clause kick in, and players have a 10 team or 12 team, 15 team no trade list, who would be on yours? We're not going to do 10. So we'll do 5 each. We'll kind of get through these. And I have some people from Subtext who threw out theirs as well. Where would you, are you going to start at number 5 and go up to number 1? Or where do you want to start? I think we should start at 5.
I think we should start at 5 because I think 1 is like a Celebrini. I think everybody knows where that's going to be.
I think everybody knows who number 1 is, right? So at least I would assume it's for you too, but they probably definitely know it's for me. No? Okay. Yeah, that is holding people on the edge, sir. All right, so go with your 5th team. Who would you not want to go to, number 5?
You will never see me in a Utah jersey. You
really?
I don't want to be part of that rebuild, that process. I don't want to be in that jersey. I want
but
nothing
it's not a
to do with
rebuild, though. It's not a rebuild.
you're rebuilding what Arizona couldn't put together with
But
new
I think they're
management,
heading
new
in the right
everything.
direction, though. Like, wouldn't you want to be a part of that?
Yeah, it's called getting on a plane and moving your team. That's the direction they're moving. It's the same team. No, I want nothing to do with that.
They improved last year, and with their draft picks and that those young prospects that they get, like Utah is still a couple years away, but they're on the rise.
That's what we said going into last year too. Like, don't trade me.
Well, I get it, but I don't know. I mean, they're division too, so I wouldn't want to go just because they're in the division. But okay, 5th for me, Philadelphia.
Oh,
would not want to play in Philadelphia, and it's not so much the franchise. Philadelphia fans, they would get me down flat out. Like they would if and I know that's like, oh, you gotta have like thick skin, and for most stuff, like I do, but if I'm giving like my all to a franchise or to a fan base that just sometimes like they love their people, like if they get behind you, they love you. But I don't know, man. There's just something about throwing snowballs at Santa Claus that I just can't get over. I know that was hockey, but still.
That leads into my number 4, and that's why I chose them. I do not want to go to Montreal.
Really?
I do not. I do not want that. I don't want the pressure of their fan base, their writers, and it's primarily French, and I can't speak French. I can barely.
See, for me, I wouldn't mind going there for the opposite, just the history there. Absolutely, but with that history comes exactly what you're saying. Yeah. A lot of pressure. Number 4 for me. Tomorrow you're gonna hear from Locked On Sens host Ross Levitan. He came on and talked about the new Ottawa Senators who are now on, or former Ottawa Senators who are now on the Avalanche with Parker Kelly and Eric Brandstrom. But right now, this is a right here and right now thing. If this was my no trade clause today, I wouldn't want to go to Ottawa. It just seems like they are just restarting over and over. And we'll hear Ross, and he kind of gives, we ask him how he, at the end of it, how he thinks the offseason is going. He kind of puts a nice spin on it. But it's for me, if I was playing the NHL, I would want to see some improvement before I take them off my no trade list.
And I completely agree with you. And again, I like how our brains and our hive mind works. That leads into my number 3. That's the reason I don't want to go to Buffalo.
I have Buffalo as my 3rd as well, sir.
Yeah, it's the same reason. I don't want to continually be part of a dumpster fire that says, "Oh no, wait, it's different," and then you're doing the same thing year in, year out. I can't do Buffalo.
I'm totally in agreement with you there. It's just a what have you done for me lately type of thing, and it's not much with Buffalo. How many years has it been since they made the playoffs? Like,
yeah, and that leads into, honestly, like with everything in Buffalo on a grander scale. My number 2, I don't want to go to New York Islanders.
Really? Okay.
Like,
all right,
they exist, and they might have like a week that they're noticeable because of some statistical something, but what have they done? Like, Tage Thompson was exciting in Buffalo for a little bit, but like other than that, what excites you about playing on the in Long Island, on Long Island?
Playing for Patrick Waugh, maybe? Is that about it? I mean, it's Islanders are I don't know. It's weird. Like they just kind of exist.
I know.
They hover. They're never like, they don't do enough to bump themselves up into a number 1 or number 2 in the division. They're always hovering there of making or not making the playoffs. They do very small moves. Lou Lamoriello is just he doesn't like to do a lot of anything. But they have a beautiful brand new arena. You are, you're on Long Island, but you're in New York, which is a great market. So, but you are always beneath the Rangers when you're there, which maybe can take a little bit of pressure off you.
And the Devils.
Yeah, probably. You're probably on that level, but I wouldn't mind going there. For me, my number 2, Columbus.
Interesting. They're an honorable mention.
it just, I don't like, just what do they offer? Like, you know what I mean? They just always seem to be down in the dumps, and maybe I just read too much into memes about Ohio, but
True.
I don't know. I just feel like when I think like hockey, I'm not going to Columbus, Ohio for some reason.
Well, I'll give you 2 reasons why they didn't make my top 5. They're the only thing in town. And
okay,
they have a cannon.
That doesn't sell me at all.
It's kind of cool. Play AC/DC, and then you get to have a cannon. Come on.
Yeah, I mean that might wear thin after game number 5, but yeah, I just wouldn't want to go to Columbus. So number 1, do we have the same?
I'm curious. Which rival did you choose?
Not a division rival.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I went Christmas tree sweater. You will never see me alive or dead in a Minnesota Wild anything.
Really?
I will like I get it's state of hockey, yada yada yada. I cannot stand anything about the Minnesota franchise, like Minnesota jersey, the fans, this like we have this long history. Do you though? Like I can't. And how do you get fired up? And then you're going to go to the Subway jerseys in like 2 years? Forget about it.
Yeah. I kind of try to get away from a lot of division rivals here. If we're going in division, I'd probably say St. Louis would be number 1 for me to not go to. Minnesota, it's like the fan base is kind of, they're into it, but they do talk a lot for not having won anything.
I will retire as soon as I'm traded to Minnesota.
But they are a passionate fan base. I will say that. To me, it wouldn't be the end of the world if I'd get traded there. Nope. I know we're only doing 5. If it went to 10, would they be on there? They'd be hovering, I would say. Wouldn't be the end of the world for me. But my number 1 absolutely would be. And that is Vegas.
Vegas.
And which kind of sucks because playing in Vegas is enticing, right? Like that. Yeah. That arena is always rocking. You're in Vegas. Weather's always nice. You're in that environment. This is totally there's no loyalty in that franchise for the people that run it. 0. So that's why I have such disdain for that team. It's not because of the players. It's not because of the fans. It's because that ownership just does not care about you. You are a number. You're not a person. And if they will bring you in and tell you everything they want to tell you, and then when there's a new shiny new toy to go be had, you could be on the block. And every year that's the case in Vegas. So I would have 0 interest playing there. There's 0 security. And when you're an NHL player, you want as much security as you can have. And just because you sign a term contract means nothing to them. They will unload you if something else is out there, and they've shown that they will do that year after year after year. So no, Vegas, I would not want to go to. As good of a team as they are, maybe for 1 year I get to play for a Stanley Cup, and I know that's the what you want. But if you got a family and you're moving them around all the time because after 1 year Vegas brings you in and then unloads you, sorry, don't want to play for that.
Sorry, if you're telling me I could get paid, I know I'm going to get paid. It doesn't matter if they can afford it or not. And I'll get to go watch Blue Man Group and Dead and Company whenever I want. So I'm fine.
And Celine Dion. You can go watch Celine Dion. Yeah. Over on Subtext, Easton says Boston, Vegas, and Dallas, just because he's a petty fan, I think, when it comes to Dallas. So I'm sure there's some people who are surprised we don't have Dallas. Like I said, I kind of got away from the division thing. And maybe there's some people that are surprised they don't have Boston on there. I struggle with, if I go to 10 teams, maybe Boston's on there.
I would love to go to Boston.
I love the city. Boston is a fantastic city. And like the fans there are maybe like the opposite of Philly fans. Like they will just defend you at all costs. Does not matter. They will always defend you.
I'd love to have that jersey with my name on it. How cool would that be?
Yeah. Katie says she actually had this conversation with friends of hers, so she already had them ready to go. Number 1 was Chicago.
Understandable.
Number 2 was Edmonton.
Oh yeah.
And number 3 is Toronto. She's got 2 original 6 teams on there.
I would hate Toronto too, for the same reason I said about Montreal.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of pressure when you go to Toronto, obviously.
Just ask Mitch Marner how that's going.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Let's see. Coy, I think, Coy's on. He said all Central Division teams. But outside of that, Toronto, and he says he doesn't really care for the media, and San Jose and Edmonton. I said, why San Jose? I asked him, I said, why is San Jose on there? And he wouldn't want to go to a team in the middle of a rebuild. But I think, again, that's kind of going back to the Utah thing. That could be enticing for if you're able to make them better, if you're at that stature, and you're able to make them better, catch them at that right time, you are a legend there where you can like catapult them into the next stage. It's not the worst thing in the world.
I think San Jose is better off than Utah.
I don't think so. Not yet.
We'll talk about that once season previews come up.
All right. So fire away in the comments. Where are places that you absolutely would not go to? Want to hear about it. All right. One more bit of business that we got to get to, and that's finishing up these season grades with Devon Toews and Miles Wood, and we'll do that next. All right, we made our way through the roster alphabetically like we do every offseason. We didn't get to Devon Toews last week, so we're going to lump him and Miles Wood together. I don't have graphics for these because there's just too much to put in, and it just wasn't working. So we'll just talk about it. We'll go in alphabetical. Why not? Finish this up alphabetically. Devon Toews, grade for him. What would you give him? I think, if I remember correctly on social media, it hovered between A and B. I think B's won out for the most part, but it was close between A's and B's.
It was a B+ for me on Taser in his year. Much like what we said with Cale Makar, this is the first year that you can see noticeable like step back and fumbling of fundamentals. And it was kind of a slower year for Taser, but I mean, identical points wise to last year. So, I mean, when it comes to the stats, you're not crying. But when it comes to needing you in the moment and some defensive plays, a little suspect.
He's so like, it's odd because, we always talk about this is like the best defensive pairing in the league, and it arguably is with him and Cale Makar. And they're just, excuse me, they're almost like opposites in just what you see on the, like Cale Makar just stands out.
Yeah.
Right. He's just like a hot knife through butter. He just glides through everybody. And Toews is just that guy that's right place, right time. And it just seems like he's that all the time. So, I mean, and he's been durable the past two seasons. Played 80 games last year, played all 82 this year. Like you said, exactly the same stats in terms of points.
Almost doubled his goals. He had 7 the year before, right, and he had 12 this year.
Right. So if he's got more goals than the previous year, he's got a few less assists, but still 50 points overall. Plus minus, again, stat, take it for what's worth. He just seems to be a plus machine.
Yeah.
He's always up there. He had, going back to when he joined Colorado, plus 29, plus 52, which led the league, plus 39, and this year plus 28. So good things happen when Toews is on the ice. He's just Mr. Reliable. Like I gotta give him an A-. Like I don't know. Like you love the guy. You love what he does to the team. He just does everything right. Sure, he had some lapses this year, just like everybody else did. But I thought for the most part, he was, again, Mr. Consistency for this team.
Yeah, if it was just a cleaner game, I probably would have leaned in the A. And hey, calling everybody out in the locker room, that was awesome. Thanks for that.
There you go. Good. Glad you brought that up. Yeah.
It's but other like the fundamental thing, like he's always Mr. Reliable, and to see Mr. Reliable be not so reliable was a little, I don't know. It gave you a little apprehension.
And we move over to Miles Wood, first year with the Avs. There's some excitement surrounding him and that signing. And you kind of got it out there. And we talked about him a lot during the season, right? Like you never knew what you were going to get shift to shift. Well, you did know in terms of like, he was going to give you 110% every shift he's out there. I say you don't know what you're going to get. It's just like he could make the sweetest move in the world that makes him look like Nathan McKinnon, or he just, he's got a wide open one on nobody break and he'll fumble the puck. So, but that's what you get in Miles Wood.
And see, and everybody knows, like if you watch the show, listen to the show, the Devils are my team in the East. And I had the tape on Wood. I know what he's going to be, and he's going to get a C+ from me. Like nothing. This is the exact version, like healthy. He had that 1 year where he only played 3 games for the Devils because of injury. But when he's healthy, this is what you're going to get. Like dancing around the 30 points a season kind of guy. Like he's not going to wow you. He's going to be that bowling ball. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes you're just like, what are you doing, Miles? But I mean, no change from what he brought to the Devils. And it's good at times for the Avs, but you'd like to see just maybe a step up in acclimation, because we talk about the Avalanche effect, quote unquote, and it just didn't seem to translate to Miles Wood because we just got Miles Wood in a different sweater.
And I think, we talked about this for a couple guys when it came to season grades, and kind of new guys. Ross Colton was one of them. As well as he did, I just feel like he could have done better if there was just more consistency on the lines that he was playing on. That's not his fault. But if there were not injuries and all this other stuff, which you're going to get in a season, so it's difficult to say that. But if you could keep Miles Wood, Ross Colton, and Logan O'Connor on that Roaring 20s line, and that was more consistent of them playing together and not broken up so many times, I think Miles Wood could have benefited from that. And I kind of feel that way about guys playing their first year with a new team. So I'm agreement with you. I think a C+ is accurate for him. And if, who knows what next season will bring. If it is just, hey, he's got, 1 year under his belt with a new team, and then he's a little bit more comfortable being brought up and down a lineup that has some injuries, or, two things can be true at the same time. If he does have a line that he's consistent with, if it is the Roaring 20s line or whatever it may be, and they can just get that like consistency going within that line, I think maybe you see a little bit, maybe a more consistent Miles Wood. But he's always going to have that aspect of his game where he's just the bull in the china shop. I think that's just the way he plays. You can't take that out of a guy once you're at this level. And I think the Avalanche like it to an extent. I think they want him to hone it in a little bit more, but they will take the good with the bad, because the good with Miles Wood is good and it's fun and it's electric, and the bad just has you smacking your forehead.
Yeah, because this Miles Wood, I mean, like I said, it's the exact same version that he gave to New Jersey, and you expect a little bit of a step up, especially with an off season and really getting acclimated to this team and what it's going to be. And I mean, this will be his, I believe, 9th year coming up in the league. Wow. So you expect him to make a little bit of a step up and take some of that veteran presence, because LOC not being on your line and swapping around a little bit, that shouldn't throw you off. You're not one of the young guns out there. That's not going to disrupt you. You know what you're supposed to do. And you had to carry a lot in New Jersey. So you expect a little bit of a step up, being a little bit more familiar with this team, and a little bit more, because I mean, a lot of things changed for the Avalanche last year. So kind of having an identity going into this offseason and camp, I think might help Miles, and you see probably closer to 40 points next year.
Wouldn't be against that at all. A couple people from subtext, Katie, and she admits she's biased. She gave him an A. I admit I'm being biased, but he's one of my favorite players. I know people have complaints about him, but Miles gets an A. For me this season, he set career high in assists, and it was his 3rd highest season for point production. He scored his first career shorthanded goal, first career overtime goal, and had one of his lowest penalty minutes for 60+ games played. He was 5th in the league for most 22-mile-an-hour bursts, with 45 of them. Hitting the NHL,
the edge stats.
Right? The edge stats, I love it. Which is crazy. Like, I didn't know that. 5th. I mean, he's a speed demon, so why should I be surprised? I just think the time on ice stat, he's a little bit lower with time on ice. So to be that high up, kudos, man.
Hey, Katie, that stat pull right there screams this is your favorite player. Right?
That's why I responded to be like, I'm glad you just didn't say he's my favorite player and gave him an A. Like, you threw out some stats as to why.
Yeah.
So, and she goes on a couple things too about, his rough and tumble play. So she brought it. Like, great job. Great job, Katie. Vargar said he gave him a C. He didn't even play as well as he did in New Jersey, he thinks. And he really didn't like him with the Devils and didn't really feel like he got that Avalanche bump.
Yeah, no, I agree with not getting the Avalanche bump, and he's playing the exact same level that he did with the Devils, but it just is more noticeable that he's on a higher caliber team.
Right. Yep. And finally, Zach, A+. He's probably one of my favorite players on the team. He skates his heart out every game. So, I mean, we're all have our favorites, and no matter what they do, they're going to get an A+. Go ahead, Zach. Give him an A+ if you want to.
Y'all had to sit there with me and watch some Devils games with Miles over there. He's singing a different song.
That's great. So, all right. That is going to wrap it up for today. Like I said, tune in tomorrow. We have Ross from Locked On Sens come on, talk about our new inherited Senators players. Gives us a little bit of an update on them and what to expect. So, that'll be on tomorrow's episode. For this one, thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.